This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. So, hopefully this will be the conclusion of our journey. Is actually we were going to restart our previous limud. However, this past Wednesday night, somebody came to the Shiur, and the sefer that we've been learning from, that Rav Gedalia Schwartz got us from Norfolk, Virginia, Masois Yushalayim, actually was published in English. It was published by ArtScroll, called Journey to Jerusalem. And the publisher came to my Shiur Wednesday night, Mr. Veg, and he says, Rabbi...
What's his first name? Robert?
Yes. And Mr. Veg came and he said, Rabbi, this is the last copy of Journey to Jerusalem. Here, I want you to have it.
Oh.
So it's in English. And not only that, it's actually a translation of an updated Hebrew edition. And in the book, there are actual photographs of his trip. They found from the archives actual photographs of his trip. So here you have a picture of the Minchas Eluzar, the Holy Rebbe. I'll just show you a few pictures very quickly.
What does Minchas mean? Why would they give that name?
This is the Minchas Eluzar with Rabbanim in Marienbad in Czechoslovakia. And you'll see.
When did ArtScroll publish this?
A couple years ago. Here you have pictures of Levaya, the Minchas Eluzar. Okay, but what was interesting to hear is a picture of the Rebbe learning Aleph Beis in 1944, the current Rebbe. Even though he's 3 years old, Baruch Hashem, he's wearing a hat. Okay? And this is a picture of the Rebbe at a tish as a bacher. But what I show you is there are a few pictures of the Minchas Eluzar on his trip to Eretz Yisroel. So this is a picture of the SS Vienna, which carried the Rebbe and the entourage from Trieste to Alexandria. Okay, that's what we learned about. This is a Rebbe on the Rebbe on the ship. Can you imagine? They have pictures. I was shocked. I don't know how they have these pictures. This is a picture of the entire entourage on the ship.
What year did
1930. Okay. Here a picture.
And they survived?
There's a whole group. Every one of them made, and the trip did not take long. It did not take long. It took 3 days by boat to Alexandria. On the way back, took 5 days. Okay. There's a picture of the entourage in Egypt. Everything we learned about, there are pictures of.
It's 10 hours from America with a good time.
It's longer today by plane, by the way. Today, you're better off going by a camel than by taking these planes. Anyway, this is the Mekubal, Reb Chaim Shol HaKohen Dweck, at a Kabbalah's Panim for the Rebbe. Okay, now check this out. This is the Yidden at the train station in Israel, waiting for the Rebbe to arrive. This is the house of the Saba Kadisha. Okay, I'll let you see after. Let's see what else very quickly.
So they went to the Saba Kadisha.
So is this book still in print?
It's in print, but I don't know if there are any copies left.
If that's the first place they went.
Everyone's Breslov at heart. What else is over here? Okay, now this is the Rebbe. This is the Minchas Eluzar with Reb Moshe Glatstein. Moshe Glatstein is the one who wrote the sefer Masois Yushalayim. Very quickly, there are a few unbelievable ones where you have pictures of Meron in 1930. Let's see if we can find it quickly. Kever Rachel, 1930. You know all the old photographs. That's what you got.
I was there when
The Rebbe in Yerushalayim. They went to Kever Yosef in Shechem. I'm shocked that they have these pictures. Pilgrims ascending the Kever of Shem Bar Yochai. The British governor arrives in Meron to greet the Munkatch Rebbe.
Really? What do you want to transport?
Is that the Jewish High Commissioner? He was Jewish. Samuel, bro.
I don't know. Okay, let's see. It's the Rebbe being escorted out of the kever of Rameir Balanes. Rabbi Yisroel. Praying at the grave of Rabbi Yirmiyahu in Tiberia. Look at what the kever of the Rambam looked like in 1930. Now it's a whole edifice. Now you could see it from all places in the city. There's like a an engraved, but it's made out of metal, right? A metal flame coming out. Okay. This is the doctor going to visit the Saba Kadisha, Dr. Moshe Wallach, who were the founders of Shari Tzedek. Okay. And finally, we're up to departing Yerushalayim. So let's do one last segment. I don't know how, we'll try to squeeze in two if that's possible. The boat that they took to leave Eretz Yisrael was a little different than when they came. They came via Egypt, through Alexandria. However, they're leaving the port of Yaffo. Yaffo port, the ship could not come to the dock. There were boulders there, it was too rocky. So what they had to do is they had to take a little boat out into the water, and they, with like some kind of ladder going down. Now if you want to, there's a picture of the Rebbe on basically a rowboat. It says over here the rowboat would be like a woo, woo, woo. And they had to let a ladder down, and here you have a picture of like a bunch of Arabs lifting the Rebbe up onto the ladder to get onto the ship. You have a picture of it over here. Anyway. Munkatch Rebbe. Yeah, Avada. There's a picture of the Rebbe learning on the ship. Now, let's take a look at this a little bit. And
First class?
on the ship? I don't know what kind of first class they had back then. I would get a refund. Okay. Take a look on page Reish Mem Zayin. You have the first booklet? Fine. This is really the end of the voyage, and to me, I'm learning this as I went there, so I'm like reliving it. I was there, I'm reliving it vicariously, so let's see what he says. I want to tell you one more thing. The Rebbe said, the Rebbe was only there basically 13 days. He said the 13 days corresponded to the 13 years Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was in the cave. That's what he wrote. And he said he does not want to be there for Shavuos. He can't be there for Yom Tov. Why?
They wouldn't leave.
In deference to one of his antecedents, that one of his forebearers, the Shas Teshuvos Chacham Tzvi, who holds that a visitor from Chutz Aretz that goes to Eretz Yisrael only keeps 1 day.
Chacham Tzvi, that's right.
And we don't paskin that way. And you're not allowed to follow it. You're not allowed to follow it.
The Lubavitch minhag is 1 day.
But the halacha is not that way.
And Rav Lior's posek could become.
And all the rabbis you could quote that you want to say, this rabbi, that rabbi, they're all very nice. They all have nice beards, but it's not normative halacha. Thank you. Relax.
Who decides who's a posek? That's a big
These
question.
are all great questions. But what I'm telling you, I can only tell you my opinion, right? That's all I can tell you. Normative halachas we don't follow that way, including the Munkatch Rebbe. But in deference to the Chacham Tzvi, the Munkatcher would not stay in Eretz Yisrael for Yom Tov, lest he be required to follow the Chacham Tzvi. We don't pass him like, and therefore he wanted to be out of there for Shavuos. Be it as it may, you see, I could talk about controversial topics. I could wiggle out. It's okay. Fine. So let's see page Reish Mem Zayin. He says over here that on the 4th, on a Wednesday in Chodesh Iyar, the 23rd day of Iyar, and the 14th day of our coming to Eretz Yisrael, so the Rebbe visited Munkatch, and they had a Sudas Preda, and basically they got to get on the boat, the last boat that's leaving from Yaffo to Trieste before Shavuos, to be able to get home in enough time. So basically, the Rebbe, the Admar Term Sadu Kapas Ragla Alei Nesiv HaMerkava, the Rebbe, before he put his feet on the train, and he has 1 foot on the bridge, and he's about to say goodbye, he couldn't hold himself in. And he said, you who have gathered today to be like the wall of the Charedim, Hasridim, the Kanoim, who stand in the breach to fight the wars of Hashem. I want to tell you, I want to depart from it with the Dvar Halacha L'Maisa, and he said like this. He says, don't be afraid. Let your heart not be worried. Even after the great conflagration that Hashem burnt down, and that is the P'tira of the Saba Kadisha, even though our hearts are broken, who could heal it? But by tzaddikim, there's no misa. His moisture and his koyach is kayam in olam haba, and he could help us by being mispala for us in the olam ha'emes. And the Rebbe wishes them chizuk and courage, and he sort of fears them goodbye. So look in the next paragraph. B'dvarim kedoshim ka'elu, with these holy words, hayotzim min alev tahar, maran shlita hanois. He was paresh uboicha. He cried. They cried. And we escorted him out of Yerushalayim with great pain. And says Rabbi Glatstein over here, Kasha alai predasam. Look in Ois Beis. So they're traveling to Yafo. They go through the city of Motza. What's Motza? So the Gemara says in Sukkah Daf Mem Hey, that's where they got the Aravos from in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the city of Motza. And then the city of Motza was Taka Matzah Toiv. However, by Masir Rabbim, it's a devastated city, and now you could apply the pasuk Motza Nimar Mimaves. It's fully run down, especially because of the pogroms that the Arabs perpetrated there. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the Munkatch Rebbe went to Hebron. And probably the simple reason is, this is 1930. A year earlier, where the Hebron massacre, probably he wasn't able to go. Because look, he went to Shechem, he went to Kever Yosef, so presumably that was the reason. I didn't see every single word of the Sefer, but I'm guessing that's why. Then he says, they went to the city of Tel Aviv. Now this is Tel Aviv 1930. Let's see how he describes it. We saw a beautiful city. It was a city, Ir Altila Benuya, in its physical structure, buildings, metropolitan. However, spiritually, it was the Gehenna, it was the abyss. Most of the Toshavim, he labels, for Munkatch, this is the worst epithet, and that is they are Tziyonim, Mizrachim, Ikarei Haaretz. Anyway, that means people he doesn't like. But why? Because of Mechalei Shabbos, not only B'Seiser, but also B'Galoi. And they eat Nevelos Utrefos, and they're not Zor in Taras HaMishpacha. In fact, it's brought over here that one of them told the Munkatch Rebbe that in this city, they don't even have a mikvah. Not only are they not Zohir in Taras HaMishpacha, but they don't even bother. Okay, Baruch Hashem, things starting to change. But anyway, look in the next ice. They come to Yafo, about 4 to 5 hours, and they come close to the port. And we got onto a little boat that the sailors took until the big boat that was called Karnara, the Karnara, which is middle of the sea that you can't get there until, because of all the, it's not even the depth, it's because of the boulders. And they had to go through a small rowboat, and as we have the picture over here, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Instead of reading this account, because we're short on time, just take a look at this picture. They had to, they went on this little small boat. They climbed up the ladder, and with the help of Arabs who shoved the Rebbe up, and they were able to get him on board.
Aravim Shchorim.
Aravim Shchorim, what a combination, right? So that's some winning combination. Okay, so says the Rebbe, Zachruna meirachaik oisanu of Yerushalayim tala levavchem, to always remember the Kedusha of Yerushalayim. Actually, they called out to us, remember us, keep Yerushalayim in your heart, and don't forget about Eretz Yisrael. Fine. So now we have a short account of the boat ride, and I want to share with you something interesting. We're on page Reish Nun Aleph, Ois Aleph. So basically, half the day passed, everybody got onto his cabin on the boat, and the boat is, shaking back and forth to what he's called Avir Eretz Ha'amim. Now, the trip there was a little difficult. They were not used to the bumpy ride, but by now, they already were accustomed to that. And this ride was only, on the way there, 3 days, now it's going to take 5 days.
Where is Trieste? What country?
Italy.
North Italy.
Okay, fine. So they went on the boat confident that the same way God got them there safe, He would get them back safe. Interesting. He says, now when we return from Sion, we're like dreaming, and we can't believe that we stood in Yerushalayim, and Tzfas, and Tveria, Meron, and Shar Mekoyim HaKadoshim in just the course of 13 days. Okay. Look on the bottom, there's a letter that's quoted over here that the Munkatch wrote, and it's brought in the Sefer Divrei Torah, Chelik Vav Ois Chaf Hei, that Munkatch wrote to the people in Yerushalayim as he's returning from Eretz Yisrael to Munkatch. He says, "V'taminu li be'emes." Look on the bottom of page Reish Nun Beis. Please believe me. Ki ahavti kol kach es Eretz HaKadoshah tibanu sikanim heri yaminu. I really love Eretz Yisrael, especially you, my Hasidim. He says, "V'hayud gimel yamim shayisra Eretz HaKadoshah." The 13 days that I was in Eretz Yisrael are connected the 13 years that the Rashbi and his son Rabbi Eluzar Reb Shimon spent in the cave.
Did he eat charuv?
And the challenges of this last generation, let it be 1 day per year. And these experiences are engraved in my mind, in my heart. Even at night, I can't help but think about the wondrous experience we had. Okay. Look in Ois Beis. He says that the Munkatcher could not be consoled, mourning and moaning over the loss of the Saba Kadisha, like a son who lost his father. He said, "Ani maleya halachti v'reika mashivani." I left full, but I'm returning empty-handed. But he says, look, in Shamayim, the Saba Kadisha could go to Rebbeinu Shalom and speed up the Kates. Okay. At that point of time...
Sorry, just a point. Somebody who drove in Odyssey, would they mind just pulling out for...
Okay, so on this subject, he says, I want to pour out that on Motzoi Shabbos, Parshas Bahar, Bechukoisai, or Chav Zayin Iyar, the Munkatcher did not leave the bottom of the ship the whole Shabbos. It's the first time he's coming up for air, and we surrounded him, and he comes up to the deck, and with tears in his eyes, he says, certainly the Saba Kaddish is now in what is called Heichala de Kan Sipar, the Heichal of Mashiach, and all of those who attach themselves to him b'chayav, he is being interceding on their behalf. Okay. Then he points out something very interesting. And you see, one of the reasons for the relationship between the Saba Kadisha and the Munkatcher, you have to know historically, they were not the only two tzaddikim in the time. There are many, many tzaddikim, but they did have something in common. What they shared in common was they were both what you call kanoim. And they both did not tolerate Jews living in Israel who were not Shomer Torah mitzvahs. To them, that was considered like a very fundamental threat to the Jewish people. And they were not soivel them, and they did not look at them favorably. You know, there are different approaches. Other Gedolim maybe saw potential redeeming quality, and they saw them as intentionally trying to undermine the future of the Jewish people. And that's one of their common bonds. But anyway, you see over here, it's reported that on the way to Eretz Yisrael on the boat, it was only the Munkatch Chevra. On the way back, because it was the boat was Malaya Mayim Hazedoinim Chalutzim v'Chalutzois Mechevras Tzioinim Hamisloitzitzim Al Das Yehudas. People who, on the last 3 lines, page Reish Nun Gimel, people who mocked Yiddishkeit. What were they doing? Look how they referred to him. Kimad Karois Cherav Belshoinam. They had swords in their tongue. Why? Because they were speaking Ivrit. And what is Ivrit? Shebadu Milibam. They invented the language. Asher Sonei Hashem Umetuav Be'enei Yisrael. You know, historically, one of the reasons why Hasidim are not makbid on diktuk and the correct pronunciation of Lashon HaKodesh. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam ozer Yisroel b'gvira. Every single word is incorrect. Not only are the nekudas wrong, but the milel morel is wrong. There's no word b'gvura. You're a complete Amaris. I don't say that about them, but a regular Jew says b'gvura, b'gvura, right? Ozer, Yisroel, b'gvura. It's a milra. Every Hebrew word is milra, unless there's a reason to say otherwise. But the Hasidim, to sort of counteract the emphasis on Hebrew language, they went the other way as an Eis Lasas Hashem. Hard to understand why Bisman Hazeh, when the thread is not the same, why one would still do that. But be it as it may, one should be makbeh when they say Kriya Shema, when they daven, to pronounce the words correctly. Not Baruch. There is no word in Lashon HaKodesh Baruch. It's Baruch, Atah, Adoshem, Elokeinu is a Milel. Melech is a Milel because they're two segal. But, what? Right. But you see the disgust that they have for people who speak Ivrit and are not Shomer Torah mitzvahs. And just be aware of the historical context of where it comes from. He says over here, here they are on the boat, and let's see, what page are we on? Reish Nun Gimel, going to Beis Rin Dalet, talks about these people who spoke Hebrew and sort of mocked the old traditions.
And they were going back over to
What?
his trip.
They're leaving.
Going
Back to Europe.
Yeah, so what the hell is them going back to Europe? That's what they're going to.
He said.
To Munkatch.
Go to Munkatch? That's in the
He says about one of the Hasidim. They go onto the dock, and there's a woman there who is speaking Hebrew and writing on Shabbos. And he says, one of the Hasidim say, "But it's Shabbos," So this is where it stems from. Anyway. But this is not a political share, but just the historical context. Look in Ois Daled. And by the way, Munkatch was not they were not connected to the Agudah either. They were not, even the Agudas Yisroel was not considered in their hashkafa. So he brings over here, there were some Agudiim on the boat. And they asked to borrow the Rebbe's Sefer Torah. And the Rebbe said no. This Sefer Torah, they don't agree with Agudah. They said, look, this Sefer Torah, Mechalo Shabbos was never called up to get an aliyah from the Sefer Torah. You could borrow my Sefer Torah on condition you don't call up a Mechalo Shabbos. And they said, we can't promise. They say you can't use the Sefer Torah. Anyway, but besides that, the rest of the trip was good.
No politics.
But Munkatch today is part of the Agudas Yisroel.
Again, I'm just reading the Sefer Masas. I don't know of us Titzach and Munkatch. I'm a simple Jew. I try to keep a Shulchan Aruch. I don't have any affiliation. I love all Jews.
Are you strong already?
Even Mechalei Shabbos?
Yeah, even them. What?
Are you strong
There's some
already?
Chassidut that will only call up Mechalei Shabbos.
Really? No, that's. Anyway. By the way, Rav Moshe says. Well, Rav Moshe says, Me'ikar Hadin, you're allowed to call up a Mechal, but it's not correct. It's not nice to do so. Anyway, it's a person has to have a certain modicum of respect for the law to be able to have the privilege to be called up. Anyway, the rest of the trip.
The guy who is from in the Chosed and he's a Ganav, is he allowed to have an aliyah?
I'm sure there's no such thing as from a Yidden or a Ganovim. I'm sure there's no such thing.
Go to Otis.
You want to know theoretically if there was a Yid from a Yid who's a Ganov? It's a theoretical question. I don't believe that there are any from Jews that don't pay their taxes and steal from the government. I can't believe such a thing would exist.
You're a tzaddik then.
What?
You're a tzaddik.
No, I'm just on the air, that's all. Okay, fine. So, look on Oisei. Rabbi, so let's go, come on. Oisei, you got it? Besides this, the rest of the trip was good. Even Shabbos Kodesh, we had a wonderful Suda. We had Tzedel Adarach, we had Yayin, Meshubach from Eretz Yisroel, we had good fish that we got fresh, and the Suda was beautiful. Okay, now listen to this. We arrived to the port of Trieste on Monday, Parshas Bamidbar, Chav Ches Iyar. You see they're getting there pretty close to the Yom Tov of Shavuos. and we sent a message to the Yabasha that things are good. By the way, let's see if I can find this. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Fine. Let's continue. Let's see if we can finish up. By the way, it's interesting. He brings over here, they spread false reports about the Munkatcher. Some of the society, some of the people in Israel, when they saw, the fake news, they spread false reports that the Munkatcher had fallen ill. And the news had reached back to his Hasidim in Munkatch, and they were devastated. Now, it was completely fabricated. When they saw the honor he was receiving throughout Israel, so some of the secularists were jealous of that, and they sent a report that it was the end of his days. And they finally, the Hasidim with the Rebbe, found out that there's this false report, so they had to send out telegrams, no, the Rebbe is okay, but the people didn't believe, they didn't know who to believe, so Baruch Hashem, they're able to clear that up. Now this is what I wanted to end with, and this was something that I thought was something that we could learn from. So you could imagine, you have pictures here, and you could actually see videos of this, of what the wedding, the Munkatch Rebbe's daughter's wedding looked like. They have actual footage of it. It's available anywhere. And the cover that they accorded the Rebbe was no less than a king in England. And it's unbelievable. The entourage and the carriages and the escorts. So when they heard that the Rebbe was coming, they sent him a message to try to arrive during midday, not during the night, because they wanted to have a tremendous, welcoming ceremony. So look in Oy Zayin. V'yosenu oid b'tshviyas davko alem mikal chasidim b'nei Shiur Rabbi the Kal Munkatch l'daber alei Rabbeinu lifol etzlei nal seder and siyam mikan ba'ofen t'yin l'chaz chazenu l'sham be'etzem hayom v'loi b'layla. Please come back during the day. Ki hema muchan b'shafas gelagsim hagafas trisim b'tuvim m'chaylas. They're going to have a parade. Latzis l'krasa yitzal v'samecha. They're going to have a tremendous Kabbalas Panim. However, the Munkatcher arranged to get home smack in the middle of the night. Why? Barech min hakavod. He didn't want the attention. Also, it's very interesting. The news of the Patira of the Saba Kaddish had not reached everywhere, and wherever they traveled, the people were asking, how's the Saba Kadisha? And they were forced to sort of be the bearers of bad news. So the Munkatch didn't want to have to do that. If he would come to Munkatch in broad daylight, he would have to bear the news that the Saba Kadisha passed away. And therefore he chose to come back in the middle of the night and not have to be the one to report the bad news. Okay, let's see, what page are we on now? Who's helping me out here? Reish Nun. Okay, here's the grand finale, something very frightening, mysterious, and we'll get to it. So we spoke about it. The Saba Kadisha was the main reason the Munkatch wanted to go to Eretz in the first place. His name is Rav Shlomo Eliezer Alfandri, who was well over 100 years old. Some say he was 120 years old at the time the Munkatcher met with him. Okay, he came from Istanbul. He went to Tzfas and then ultimately to Yerushalayim. So let's look at this. When did they return home? Thursday, in the middle of the day, Beis Sivan. But still, the people of Munkatch, they had such a love for the Rebbe. It was smack in the middle of the night. There was still a tremendous welcoming, a tremendous Kabbalas Panim. Ma neder haya hamachzeh haneh, how wondrous was the scene. B'Kabbalas Pnei Melech Adir, v'chiyidaber shalma al amoy. And they started to sing, and the Munkatch said, don't sing. Leiv yoidea moras nafshay. We're still, and those were the words he said. Listen carefully. On Beis Sivan. What year is this? This is the year Taf Reish Tzadi, 1930, right? So on Beis Sivan, he said, don't sing. Leiv yoidea moras nafshay. We're still in the middle of the Avelus of the Saba Kadisha. Fine. Those were very spooky words. Leiv Yoidea Maras Nafshay. When did he return? Beis Sivan Tafrei Sadi. So it's brought over here from the biography of the Munkatch. Look on the bottom. I'm going to read to you the biography, and then I'm going to read to you in the New Art Scroll edition. They have one very frightening Haisafa. Okay? He says over here, you know what happened on Beis Sivan? The Rebbe came back on Beis Sivan Tafrei Sadi. He didn't let them sing because he said, Leiv Yoidea Maras Nafshay. 7 years later to the date, Tafrei Sadi Zayin, on that date, the Munkatch Rebbe passed away. On Beis Sivan. Leiv Yoidea Maras Nafshay. And Uva'avoin Hadar, it was a day of darkness. He lived from the day he came back from Eretz Yisroel until the day he died, 7 more years. 1 Shemitah. That's the end of what's reported in the Hebrew edition. And as I said, the publisher, Mr. Robert Veg, came Wednesday night. He brought me the English edition, and I'm just looking at it, and it's a translation of the Hebrew, but in this footnote, they have one added detail, which is very frightening.
Where did they get it from? It wasn't in the Hebrew.
I think Mr. Veg told me that there's an updated Hebrew one that he published. I didn't see it yet, so maybe it's from the updated. I'm not sure. So again, what day did the Rebbe die? Beis Sivan Tafrei Sadi Zayin. But we know the Nazis came into Munkatch 7 years later. 7 years later to the date, on Beis Sivan, Munkatch was taken to Auschwitz. That's also a frightening thing. That's what it says over here. With the passing of the tzaddik, look, I put it on your sheet. With the passing of the tzaddik, the shield of generation, we saw the fulfillment of the verse. Because of the impending evil, the righteous one was gathered in. Shortly after the Rebbe's passing, the Nazis began to persecute the Jews of neighboring lands, subjecting men and women. In Adar 1944, the enemy cast his net over Hungary, and in Nisan, the Jews of Munkatch were sent to the ghetto. On the 20th of Iyar, the Nazis began to transport people daily from Munkatch region to Auschwitz. The final transport loaded onto the cattle cars on the afternoon of the first day of Sivan, and the people on the transport stayed in the cattle cars overnight. On the second day of Sivan, they traveled to Auschwitz. At that horrific time, our brothers recalled how exactly 7 years earlier on that day, the Rebbe had passed away, and 7 years before that, on that day, the Rebbe had said, the heart knows its own bitterness. Marv Rabbi say, I think the main reason that we read this whole account is, first of all, you see this tremendous love that the Munkatcher had for this tzaddik, the Saba Kadisha, that, back then it wasn't such an easy trip. It was a very arduous trip. But the tremendous ava that he had for the Saba Kadisha, and the tremendous ava that he had for Eretz Yisroel, cherishing every footstep and every stone and every moment. And this was Ma'asois Yishalayim. We should tackle Obi Zoicha to go back to Eretz Yisrael, to Yishalayim. Meheri Amenu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.